Slowly, silently, its lights a faint glitter of life amid the darkness, the Imperial Star Destroyer Chimera glided through space. Empty space. Oppressively dark space. Long, lonely light years from the nearest of the tiny islands that were the star systems of the galaxy, drifting at the edge of the boundary between the outer rim worlds and the vast regions of territory known as unknown space, at the very edge of the Empire. Or rather, at the edge of the pitiful scraps of what had once been the Empire. Standing beside one of the Chimera's side viewports, Admiral Pellaeon, Supreme Commander of the Imperial Fleet, gazed out at the emptiness, the weight of all too many years pressing heavily across his shoulders. Too many years, too many battles, too many defeats. Perhaps the Chimera's bridge crew was feeling the weight too. Certainly the sounds of activity going on behind him seemed more muted than usual today. But perhaps it was merely the effect of being out here, so far from anywhere at all. No, of course, that had to be it. The men of the Chimera were the finest the fleet had to offer. They were Imperial officers and crewers, and Imperials didn't give up. There was a tentative footstep at his side. "Admiral," Captain Ardif said quietly. "We're ready to begin, sir." For a moment, Pellaeon's mind flashed back 10 years, to another very similar moment. Then it had been Pellaeon and Grand Admiral Thrawn who'd been here on the Chimera's bridge. Watching the final test of the prototype cloaking shield Thrawn had recovered from among the Emperor's trophies inside Mount Tantus. Pellaeon could remember the excitement he'd felt then. Despite his misgivings about the insane Jedi clone, Jarua Sabayoth, as he watched Thrawn single-handedly breathing new life and vigor back into the Empire. But Mount Tantus was gone, destroyed by agents of the New Republic, and Sabayoth's own madness and treason, and Grand Admiral Thrawn was dead. And the Empire was dying. With an effort, Pellaeon shook the shadows of the past away. He was an Imperial officer, and Imperials didn't give up.
"Thank you,"
he said to Ardif. Pellaeon had always loved war games when he was younger, had relished the chance to play with technique and tactics without the risks of true combat. Somewhere in all those years, the excitement had faded away.
"If you want fairness, organize a shockball tournament,"
Pellaeon said acidly.
"Don't look for it in warfare."
"There have to be practical uses for this cloaking shield device."
"Of course there are,"
Pellaeon agreed heavily.
Grand Admiral Thrawn devised 3 of them himself, but there's no one left in the Empire with his military genius.
He sighed.
"No, Captain. It's over. It's all over. And we've lost."
For a long moment, the low murmur of background conversation was the only sound on the bridge.
"You can't mean that, Admiral," Ardif said at last. "And if I may say so, sir, this is not the sort of thing the Supreme Commander of Imperial forces should be talking about."
"Why not?"
Pellaeon countered.
"It's obvious to everyone else."
"It most certainly is not, sir," Ardif said stiffly. "We still hold 8 sectors, over 1,000 inhabited systems. We have the fleet, nearly 200 Star Destroyers strong. We're still very much a force to be reckoned with."
"Are we?"
Pellaeon asked.
"Are we really?"
"Of course we are," Ardif insisted. "How else could we be holding our own against the New Republic?"
Pellaeon shook his head.
"We're holding our own for the simple reason that the New Republic is too busy right now with internal squabbling to bother with us."
"Which works directly to our advantage," Ardif said. "It's giving us the time we need to reorganize and rearm."
"Rearm?"
Pellaeon threw him a quizzical frown.
Have you taken even a cursory look at what we're working with here?
He gestured out the viewport at the prey birds, disappearing now beneath the edge of the Chimera's hull as they headed for the Star Destroyer's hangar.
Look at them, Captain. Soro-sub prey birds. We're reduced to Soro-sub prey birds.
There's nothing wrong with the prey birds, sir, Ardif said stubbornly. They're a quite capable mid-sized starfighter.
The point is that they're not being manufactured by the Empire,
Pellaeon said.
They're being scrounged from who knows where. Probably some fringe pirate or mercenary gang. And they're being scrounged precisely because we're down to a single major shipyard and it can't keep up with demand for capital ships, let alone starfighters. So tell me how you plan for us to rearm ourselves.
Ardif looked out the viewport. It's still not yet over, sir. But it was. And down deep, Pellaeon was sure Ardif knew it as well as he did. 1,000 systems left, out of an empire that had once spanned 1 million. 200 Star Destroyers remaining from a fleet that had once included over 25,000 of them. And perhaps most telling of all, hundreds of star systems that had once maintained a cautious neutrality were now petitioning the New Republic for membership. They, too, knew that the outcome was no longer uncertain. Grand Admiral Thrawn could perhaps have breathed the remaining sparks into an Imperial victory. But Grand Admiral Thrawn was gone.
Have the Navigator plot a course for the Bastion system, Captain,
Pellaeon said to Ardif.
Send transmissions to all the Moffs, instructing them to meet me at Moff Disra's palace. We'll leave as soon as the prey birds are aboard.
Yes, Admiral, Ardif said. May I tell the Moffs what the meeting is about? Pellaeon looked out the viewport at the distant stars. Stars that the Empire had once called theirs. They'd had so much. And somehow, it had all slipped through their fingers.
Tell them,
he said quietly.
It's time to send an emissary to the New Republic to discuss the terms of our surrender.